Stop, because what happened during the Indiana Fever versus Dallas Wings game is being talked about for all the wrong reasons. Everyone is focused on the clip. The moment cameras caught Caitlin Clark turning away from Stephanie White on the sideline. The social media reaction was immediate. Was there tension? Was Clark refusing to engage? Was something cracking beneath the surface? And while everyone was analyzing body language, nobody paid attention to what Dallas Wings head coach Jose Fernandez said publicly after the game. He said his entire game plan was simple: stop Caitlin Clark, let Kelsey Mitchell score. Because if Mitchell is getting 37 points, that means Clark is not getting the ball. And if Clark is not getting the ball, nobody else on Indiana is a threat. That was the plan. And it worked. Clark finished 4 for 15 from the field, 2 for 8 from 3. Mitchell finished with 37 points. Indiana lost 91-85 to a Dallas Wings team that had lost 8 of their last 11 games. The camera caught the sideline moment. But the real story was happening on the floor, and almost nobody talked about it. Tonight, the full picture of what actually went wrong, and why the league's most dangerous player is being neutralized one game plan at a time. Let's start with the basketball, because the numbers tell the story before anything else. Clark finished with 10 points, 9 assists, and 4 rebounds. On paper, close to a double-double. But dig deeper. 4 for 15 from the field, 2 for 8 from three-point range. She shot 26% in a game Indiana needed. Against a Dallas Wings team that had been struggling, this was not a bad shooting night against an elite defense. This was Clark never finding her rhythm, against a team she should have been able to attack freely. And here is where the Dallas game plan becomes the most important detail of the entire game. Fernandez built his defensive scheme around one idea: make someone other than Clark beat us. They were willing to give Mitchell everything. Because if Mitchell has the ball, Clark does not. And if Clark does not have the ball in her hands consistently, the offense loses the threat that makes every other player on Indiana dangerous. Mitchell shot the ball 20 times. Clark shot the ball 15 times. That is the game in 2 numbers. And here is the brutal part. Fernandez did not need his defense to stop Indiana. He needed Indiana to stop Indiana. And on this night, that is exactly what happened. Now, let's talk about the sideline moment, because context is everything here. Late in the game, Clark had endured a night where almost nothing was working. Cameras caught her turning away from Stephanie White during what appeared to be a sideline conversation. Social media immediately did what social media does. Theories everywhere. Clark is done with White. The locker room is broken. She refused to listen. Here is what we actually know. Clark had just missed several shots in a row. The Fever were losing a game they should have controlled. She was visibly frustrated. Players who are frustrated with themselves often do not want to hear anything in that moment. That is not a crisis. That is a competitor who is angry at their own performance. But here is the part worth examining carefully. When a superstar turns away from her coach on camera, in a game where the offensive balance was already being questioned, it adds a layer to a conversation that was already happening. Not about a broken relationship, about whether Clark is being consistently placed in situations where she can succeed. That is the basketball question underneath the body language clip, and it deserves a real answer. Here is where the offensive balance argument becomes legitimate, and it has nothing to do with picking sides. When Clark is in rhythm, here is what happens. Defenses collapse toward her. Mitchell gets open looks. Boston gets space around the rim. Perimeter players get clean catch-and-shoot opportunities. The entire offense functions because Clark demands 2 defenders and punishes that double team with perfect passes. When Clark does not have the ball in her hands early, here is what happens. Defenses focus on whoever has it. The threat of the logo 3 disappears. Pick-and-roll coverages become simpler. The pressure that creates every open look for every other Fever player evaporates. That is not a criticism of Mitchell. Mitchell scoring 37 points is an excellent outcome. The question is, what created those 37 points? Was it Indiana running actions designed to get Mitchell open? Or was it Dallas loading up on Clark and Mitchell punishing the open space that created? There is a massive difference. One is a feature of Indiana's offense. One is a feature of Indiana's defense of their most dangerous player. And on this night, Fernandez knew exactly which one was happening. Now, here is the broader pattern, and it makes this game more important than one bad shooting night. Every opposing coach in this league has figured out the same thing. Keep Clark off the ball early. Let her miss a few shots. Get her out of rhythm. And then let the psychological weight of a bad shooting start do the rest of the work. Because once a shooter starts missing, every next shot carries the previous misses. The defense starts playing differently. Contests get tighter. The shooter starts feeling the weight. Clark is human. She is not immune to that process. What great coaching can do is break that cycle. Create one simple opportunity. One clean look, one open three that goes in, and the entire sequence resets. The defense has to respect her again. The offense breathes. And Clark goes back to being the most dangerous player on the floor. The Fever have the tools to break that cycle. The Clark-Boston combination alone, when functioning properly, should force defenses into impossible decisions every possession. On this night, it did not function consistently. And Dallas never needed to deviate from their game plan, because the game plan worked. Here is the full picture, and it is more important than one loss. Dallas Wings, 8 losses in their last 11 games. Their game plan: keep the ball out of Clark's hands, live with Mitchell scoring. Result: Indiana loses 91-85. Clark shoots 4 for 15. Cameras catch Clark turning away from White on the sideline. Social media focuses on body language. Nobody talks about Fernandez publicly explaining the game plan that neutralized Indiana. That is the real story. Not the clip, not the theories. The fact that every opposing coach in the WNBA now has a documented blueprint for beating Indiana. And that blueprint is not about stopping Kelsey Mitchell or Aaliyah Boston. It is about keeping the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands until she misses enough shots that the rhythm is gone, and then trusting the psychological weight of a bad shooting night to do the rest. Indiana has too much talent for this to be a recurring outcome, but until the offense finds a consistent way to get Clark comfortable early, regardless of how defenses choose to shade, this game will not be the last time this conversation happens. 4 for 15. Clark turned away from White. Dallas had one game plan: keep the ball away from Clark. It worked. Indiana lost to a team that had won just 3 of their last 11. Subscribe for daily WNBA content. Drop a comment. Is the sideline moment the story? Or is the real story that every coach in the WNBA now has a blueprint for slowing down the Fever? Because Fernandez said it publicly, and Indiana still lost. That is the conversation worth having.